and welcome back to Random Immy. If you are new here, please remember to like and subscribe. In today's video, I am going to be making the Dominion of Stigma Statue. To do this, you will need to make sure that you have clippers and plastic glue. The instructions on how to make the model. The sprues to make the model. This is what the Dominion of Stigma Statue should look like at the end of the video. It is made out of 3 distinct parts, but one being the statue in itself, one being the pedestal the statue stands on, and then the other 2 things being the brazier. I'm going to start by making the stigmarite statue first, as this is going to take the longest. The first thing I'm going to do is clip out the main body of the statue, which are these 2 parts here. Check the 2 model parts that you've just cut to see if there's any obstructing mould lines that could affect the appearance. Before I glue my model together, I'm going to do a dry fit test, which you basically do by putting the 2 model parts together, and it should line up perfectly. If there's any bumps, which you can tell by it not sitting flat, go and get the tweezers or your mould scraper and scrape it off. I'm now going to start by gluing around the outside of the model on one part of it. I do this just by tracing the outline of the model. Little glue is needed for this as well, and it doesn't take long for it to dry. It takes a few seconds for it to dry, so this means that you may want to hold it in place. Now that it is dry together, you can now check the mould lines to see if anything needs to come off it, which, as I am looking around on mine, it looks fine. I'm going to leave this part to dry a little bit longer, so I'm going to start by cutting out the next part. What I'm going to do now is add these 2 parts to the bottom of the statue, at the end here and the other end here. I'm now going to cut off the rest of the mould lines from the 2. I'm going to start off by attaching the easiest part of the 2 pieces that I've just cut to the model. And it happens to be the one that's slightly thin. It is easier to do this because it attaches from one side of the model to the other side of the model, whereas the thicker, wider part just hangs off. Just as before, when I put the models together, I started by doing a dry fit. I'm now going to start by adding the glue to where the model is on the base. So I'm going to do it here and at the edge here, and along this side here, just to give it a little more strength across the whole thing. I'm now going to start placing this part in the correct direction, which is this way. It will stick for a few minutes. We'll leave it to dry, and we'll add the second part. As I said before, the second part doesn't need to be attached anywhere else. It only needs to be attached on one part, which is to the actual main body of the model. To do this, I will put some glue on the side here and attach the wider, thicker end into the model, as this is going to stick behind what it says on the front of the model. I'm going to leave this part to dry for a bit, so I'm going to cut out the rest of the accessories in the meantime. Just like every other part that I've done, I'm going to cut out the extra mould lines. This is especially important on this part, which is the crown to go on top of the statue. I have now finished cutting off the mould lines from the accessories, which I'm now going to start adding onto the main body. The first thing I'm going to do is add the top of the cuff onto the hand that is located already on the body. All I need to do is do 2 strips on the model's arm and then just the rim slightly. And I have to do this with a very steady hand. I'm now going to add the cuff on top of the glue and press it for a few seconds to make sure that it holds in place and remains flat. The next part I'm going to add is a badge which goes on the shoulder here. If you're like me and you've cut all the parts out and you can't remember which one goes where, the dents on the back here help tell you where these go on the model. It's also a great way to check if you've got the correct parts. The part that I need for the shoulder pad is the one that has like a triangle shape on its back, as this is what the hole is on its shoulder. As it's just going to sit in there, I'm going to place some glue around the top of the shape and then stick in the correct orientation, which has the skull up as well, and place that into the base like so, and it should just sit nice on the shoulders. I'm going to now add the crown on top of this statue. The place for the crown goes at the back, just behind the head in itself. To do this, I'm going to use the crown thing, and you can tell by the dent on the bottom which way around it should go. I just need to add a dot of glue in either groove that's located at the back, and then with the correct orientation, stick the crown into those grooves. On this part especially, you may find you need to hold it into place, as this bit needs to stand on its own, just like that. The last part I've got to add on the front of the statue for now is the other 2 badges, which go at either side on the chest. Just like before, the 2 triangles on the chest tell you which way around they should go, as well as the triangles matching on the back of the badges. Just going to put a small dot of glue in the chest here and find the correct one that matches it. So it'll just sit like this in the hole and lines the sleeve. Going to do the same with the second one. A little bit of glue and the badge on the shoulder pad to be in line. I'm just going to put this part to the side whilst I make the second sleeve. The second sleeve is split into 2 parts, which are located here and here. All I need to do is cut these 2 parts out and then stick them back to back with the 2 wider ends together and the 2 thin ends together. I attached the sleeve here and by the wide part at the top and the small bit at the bottom. There is a mark on the arm as well as on top of the 2 joined parts that form the sleeve to make sure that it goes in the correct direction. If you cannot tell which way goes where, you can check on the opposite side as the top part, which is the wider part, is at the top and the bottom part is the smaller part. Just like everything else, I'm going to do a quick dry fit to make sure that everything's fine. And all I do is just have to check the orientation and push it in slightly. There you go. The sleeve that has the pattern on should be more towards the outside, so you can see the detailing. I'm now just going to glue this into place now that I'm happy with the orientation. Whilst that part is drying, I'm going to make the hands to go on either side. I'm going to make the first hand, which is the orb hand. This is made out of the part that looks like a lightning bolt and the part that is just a hand with like half a bowl on it. On the lightning bolt part, I am going to make sure that I start from the fragile bits, which are the bolts and parts. I'm going to leave this end until the end. All I need to do to finish the first hand is cut the hand part out and glue it together. The two hand parts are now separate and ready to be joined. This part is especially important to have the correct orientation, as this is going to be sat on top of the arms. Don't be deceived on the part that has the hand on, that the flat end part here should end up having been connected with the model, as this is wrong. What you need to make sure instead is that the bottom of the orbit here and the other part goes on top, like so, just like that. And all I need to do now is just add the glue. All I need to do, just like I said, is add it on the flat surface where you just dry tested it. And just slot it back in. I'm going to leave this part to dry and make the second hand in the meantime. The second hand in itself is here, which has the bottom of the weapon. The second part for this one is right here, above the pedestal halves, which goes on top of the other part. If you are confused on which way around the orientation of this hand should be, the thinner part that only has like one hole in is the top part, which is where this part here gets attached to. If you're also confused on this one, which way around it goes, this part here that's only half is the one at the bottom. All this part needs is just a small blob of glue on either the top part of the weapon or the handle. As this is then going to push them together, and this part is another part that you'll need to hold in place for a few minutes. Just like that. Now that we're back to the main model, I'm going to add the first hand that we made, which is the one with the orb in it, and this one goes here, on this side. So that spot at the back of earlier goes on this part here on the model. This part as well is a great place to put the glue to make sure that the model has contact, as well as adding glue on the bottom part of the hand here to make sure it sticks properly to the cuff. I found it easier to add the glue to the hand part rather than the model part, the main model part in itself, as the hand part has less detail than the model part. The second hand part should now be dry. As I mentioned earlier, on this hand there was two holes at the bottom. These two holes can be found on the bottom of the statue's belt here, where the two words look like they've slipped off. And also make sure the hand is in line properly. So I'm going to add glue this time onto the model just by adding a small blob into the two holes on this bit at the bottom and on the ring where the hand goes. Now I'm just going to add the hand, which I might find easier by adding the two parts where the hole is and then into the hand part. This is the first of the three parts complete. What I'm going to do now is make the pedestal, which is just made out of these top two parts here. The next part to do now that the cut and the mould lines have come off is just first bit, dry bit, and glue the two halves together just like that. And then it's complete. I'm just going to glue along the long edge. I just don't need to glue the bottom of this. And then just push. just like that. I'd lift the model up a little bit as well, just in case if there's any glue slightly on the bottom, so as it's not to stick down on your surface. But that's this part done. All that's left now on this is just to make the two braziers, which are near enough identical to each other. They're both made up of 2 halves and a flame. And just like everything else in this video, it's the same process that you need to do. Cut, scrape, and glue after a dry fit test. And there you have it, the finished thing. Thanks for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.